Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 505, Big Sports Weekend. Hello, Big Chillians. Welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. I'm Frank, joined as Eddie on a unique time and day. This could be a recordagami for us.
Yeah, we've probably never recorded.
On a Saturday morning?
I don't even know if we've ever recorded on a Saturday before. Already that might be a novelty. I think we've done pretty much every other day of the week, but it's rare. A weekend recording for us is extremely rare.
I mean, you lead a busy life, Eddie.
Do I? Is that the issue? I think the time difference is the bigger factor in it than the incredibly busy life that I lead.
I mean, my Saturday consists of an early morning gym session and then watching college football and doing laundry.
Some decent college football today, too. So at least you got
big Penn State
Penn State, Alabama, Tennessee. Also,
yep.
I don't know. I never know how to feel about these Alabama games where I think they like to talk them up as this is going to be a real test for Alabama, and history would tell us that Alabama will win comfortably, but who knows?
Yeah, should be a fun Saturday. And then, I mean, even you have some real good Premier League matchups.
Well, it's a weekend of interesting European football. You've got City, Liverpool,
El
Clasico in Spain with Real Madrid, Barcelona. You have PSG, Marseille in France, which from a rivalry standpoint is significant. I think because it's still fairly early in the season, people will try and talk up some significance in terms of the actual league standings. But I mean, PSG are going to run away with Ligue 1, whether they win this one, draw this one, or lose this one. So it kind of doesn't matter. And actually Bayern Munich tomorrow facing, they've had an inconsistent start to the Bundesliga season, and they're playing Freiburg, who are, in the top half of the table. So as they look to, a very typical Bayern Munich season so far. Early league struggles and a bit of inconsistency, and then by January, February, they'll be 6-7 points clear, and the league will be over. But it seems Germany follows the same pattern pretty much every season.
Yeah. I mean, a little disappointing, though. They've ruined a few good parts.
Oh, no. Bayern have definitely been, aside from in the Champions League, Bayern have very much been bet ruiners for people out there.
Yeah.
But I guess speaking of football teams ruining things, we can then maybe talk about Jurgen Klopp's mini rant that he had in his press conference, speaking about how it's slightly unfair that you have these state-owned teams who are able to spend unlimited sums of money, and that for everyone else it's impossible for them to compete. He's obviously making reference to Manchester City ahead of their match on Sunday, but also through Newcastle into that category, and PSG are also there. I don't know why he's necessarily limited to those sets of teams, because I think there are other teams out there who could kind of spend virtually unlimited sums. But, I understand where he's coming from, and he's right that Liverpool have to run themselves sort of as a real business in a way that City or PSG or Newcastle certainly do not have to. The thing that bothers me is you then get a lot of Liverpool supporters feeling as if either this is an excuse or a kind of badge of honor that they're a kind of proper football club and City or Newcastle or PSG aren't. And it's like, well, that's great, but all of the non-top 4, top 6 teams in England and, 99% of the football clubs in Europe would look at Liverpool and the amount of money they're able to spend and say, well, this just isn't fair. So unless Jurgen Klopp is pushing for a sort of more American style management of leagues where you have some kind of salary cap and a quest for parity, even though it's virtually impossible to achieve, unless that's the goal, saying this isn't really that fair because that team can spend more than us. Is he apologizing every other week when Liverpool are playing Southampton, saying, well, I know we're going to go onto this pitch tomorrow and compete 11v11, but realistically, we've won this match already because we've outspent them by £150 million in putting our squad together.
Yeah, and, well, I mean, my question is he just saying this because they've here of spending. So he's kind of in this situation where they look like they don't spend very much. So they're kind of
Liverpool, you mean?
low, at least in the Premier League table.
I think
Yeah.
he's saying it.
Because this year they haven't spent very much.
Um,
But has that been consistent?
So consistently, I think if you look over the last 10 years, I think City have outspent Liverpool by something like £650 million. I think it's something along those lines. And, Liverpool have sold quite a lot of players in a way that Liverpool have sold quite a lot of players in a way that City have not. So, they've balanced, Liverpool have kind of balanced the books pretty well from a spending standpoint, but still they're spending, they're signing big players. It's like, it's not as if, when they're bringing Darwin Núñez in, they're not bringing him in for £5, so they are outspending the vast majority of the Premier League. And that's not the hidden cost of all this, right? Is wages. So it's also one thing for him to say, okay, well, maybe we can point to the fact that like there might be a season where randomly Southampton do outspend us in the actual publicized transfer fees, but they might be signing a player onto £60,000 a week, and Liverpool are bringing their players in on £150,000 a week. So the long term, the kind of overall cost over the lifetime of the contract of that player might be more, even though another club might have spent more on the original transfer fee. So, yeah.
So I'm on Transfer Market. I went back for the past 10 years for Premier League. Liverpool sit fifth in expenditures at 1.23 billion.
And I'm sure on sales.
And City is second at 1.8, and Chelsea is one at 1.95. But then when you put in the income, which is what you're going to say, right? Yeah. And you look at the net balance, Liverpool have done substantially better than City, where Liverpool is at a negative 430 million, and City is in a negative 1,000.
You mean billion?
Or yeah. So, I know it's just that they put 1,000 million here, which is strange.
Yeah. So that's a net negative difference of 550-ish million over the course of 10 years. So you'd say on average they're outspending Liverpool by 55 million, which you could maybe say that means on average they're signing one extra player per season, if you kind of tried to work it out. And that's a significant difference, but it's just the issue I have with.
But when you're that high at that point, is one maybe I don't know. I think at that point when you're spending that much, if you are just a little better at managing your team and selecting better players, it's really not that significant of a difference.
I don't know. It's pretty big. Like, I put it this way: with the way Liverpool run themselves, they were not in the running for Erling Haaland this summer. Because yes, with his release clause, the actual cost of the original transfer wasn't that much. But when you factor in agents' fees, what his dad was supposedly paid on top of it, and the astronomical salary that he is picking up at City, which is rumored to be something in the region of sort of 45 to 50 million pounds a year.
Again, not part of this calculation.
They were not in contention. They were not in a position to be able to sign him. I mean, there's other reasons as well, but I just think he wouldn't have signed for them even if they had been able to match all of the offers that were on the table. But look, I can understand the frustration. The issue I have a little bit with Jurgen Klopp in general is when things are going against him, he's very good at complaining. And when things are going his way, he's pretty smug. And if he wants to commit himself right now to the idea of fixing the way that football is run, coming in with financial fair play rules that are equally punitive for clubs at the top of the tree as they are for clubs at the bottom of the tree, if he wants to find some way to introduce some sort of a salary cap or to, have some kind of financial regulation that makes sense, I'm all for it. I think it would be much the better. And I think it's a shame that most European leagues are going the way of only having one or two clubs that have a realistic chance of winning it at the beginning of each season. You can kind of, like we could do our preseason prediction for the Premier League for next season already, and we'd be pretty accurate, and so I'm all in favor of those kind of regulations being in place, but that's not what he wants. He just wants a little bit less criticism of himself and of Liverpool because they haven't had a great start to the season. And that's the only reason why this is coming up. If Liverpool were 5 points clear at the top of the table, he might make reference to it and saying, isn't it wonderful we're here, but we didn't spend quite as much money? But it wouldn't be as much of a talking point.
Exactly. He would spin the yarn another way to kind of make it show how much better he's doing than all the other managers because of what little money he's got to spend. Look at how great they're doing.
Yeah. But, that's... And I get it. And it must be frustrating because he will feel like, Liverpool have come within a match or two of winning 3 Premier League titles in his time in charge, which would have completely changed the way they are viewed in history. And he might be looking at their window closing, or it looks like their window might be closing a bit. And for as much as everyone has spoken about over the last, if we go back to the back end of last season, how City and Liverpool might be the version of them last year might have been 2 of the best teams in the history of European football, one of the greatest rivalries in the history of English football, how the Premier League was kind of in its almost best ever era in terms of the quality at the very top and their dominance. It's not that easy to look into the future, 10, 15 years from now, when that same kind of analysis is being done and think, Liverpool only won 1 Premier League title in that period. And okay, they won the Champions League. But realistically, were they that good? It's going to be able to, because of their lack of league titles, they're going to get dismissed pretty swiftly in terms of where they stand from a historical perspective.
You love saying that.
No, but it's just...
it gives you so much
It doesn't give me any joy. It's just the reality. We had to sit through it.
But I mean, so I guess, but I understand. You're right. But do you put any stock into the fact that, okay, yes, they didn't win the Premier League, but they made it to the last day and got arguably one of the closest seconds you can get?
No.
There's no stock in that?
Yes, for the people who either have very good memories, sort of lived through the moment, remember it, and are not Liverpool supporters, because they'll obviously remember it forever. But realistically, no, because history, we just don't go into that much detail about how a team necessarily won the title or who finished second. It all gets pretty much forgotten, right? I think about it as a Blackburn supporter. Blackburn won the title on the last day of the season. They only won it because Manchester United slipped up and didn't win. Blackburn lost on the final day of the season at Anfield to Liverpool. And so in another, if Manchester United had managed to find a winner against West Ham, Blackburn don't win the league. And, that entire era of Blackburn Rovers is remembered differently because they wouldn't have won the league during it. And at the same time, not that many people kind of remember just how close Manchester United came to winning the league that season. And so, no, I think, I think if you win in an extremely memorable way, like when City won their first ever Premier League title with the injury time Aguero winner against QPR, the kind of 2 late goals to win them the title, and winning after Manchester United's match had already finished and it looked like United had won the title in a surprising fashion. I think people remember it from that perspective. But just, I think 20 years from now, people will just remember City winning the title again. And they won't really think about the fact that you do know there was 60, 65 minutes into the matches on the final day of the season, it looked like City were not going to win it. Very few people are going to go into that level of detail.
Yeah, I was going to try and bring a Patriots analogy up, but the Patriots had just too many Super Bowl wins that I can't make that analogy.
Well, I mean, it's right, though. I mean, if you think about it, right, the Patriots didn't dominate many of the Super Bowls that they won. Like a lot of the Super...
I didn't actually even mean it in that sense. I was going to say, like the Patriots probably go down as the greatest long-lasting dynasty in NFL, like a 20-year span where they were a dynasty. But they only won 6 times out of those 20
incredible.
Years. But yet, I know.
That's not a good comparison.
A shitty argument. If it were 4, I think you could.
I'll give you a better.
But what I was going to say. But what I was going to say is
before. I'll give you a better NFL comparison. It's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers could be Liverpool. in that we'll get to the end and go, wow, at his peak he was really, really good, and won multiple MVPs, and
It's tough to make a case for a whole team with one person because
no, but you want to do a comparison to the NFL.
I know what you're saying.
And how will history remember Aaron Rodgers? Probably not as kindly as we remember him or place him now. Because as things age, the less you have won, the harder it is to make a case for you. Like win.
But he's a 4-time MVP winner.
Yeah, but winning.
So if you're one person, isn't winning the best player the award?
But
right?
Okay, so as people who've lived through the era, I think you can make a legitimate case for the fact if you take, a little overlap in generations. But if you go Manning, Brady, Mahomes, and Rodgers, I think you can make a legitimate case that Rodgers is the most talented of all of those four. That he is fundamentally the best quarterback, and just the team that he was on, and maybe a little bit of bad luck or whatever it is, meant that he had the least, or at least looks as if he will end up having had the least team success. However, in the future, it will be very difficult 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now to look back and say Aaron Rodgers was the best quarterback of that era. Not on the best teams, but best individual quarterback. Because you go, but Brady won so many more Super Bowls. Even Manning won more Super Bowls. Mahomes will probably end up winning more Super Bowls. Mahomes may end up winning more MVPs. There's just going to be so many players that pass him on every pretty much statistical measure from a true success standpoint that he'll just kind of fade into the background.
Yeah, but will he fade into the background because of that, or because he's going to be high on some crazy hallucinogenic drug out in the fucking deserts of California?
He won't fade into the background of anything. He'll be soaring in the skies.
He'll be floating.
But I guess then to wrap up the Premier League discussion, maybe, what is your prediction for the Liverpool City match?
4-2.
2?
Yeah.
No, 4-2. 2 who's winning?
Okay. To City.
High scoring.
I thought that would have been pretty obvious. But I'm going another 2 for Haaland. I'm going a brace. And actually, what I was going to bet was him and Salah to both score and City to win.
It's very specific. Yeah, part of me feels as if I don't think City will lose. Part of me wouldn't be stunned if Liverpool managed to scrape a draw, just because it would be a very Liverpool thing to do. I know that's the kind of thing I say quite frequently, but there is just that thought in the back of my mind at Anfield that maybe this match will bring the best out of them and that they will manage to get some sort of result from it. But they've been so poor defensively. You have to imagine that all of those City players are just looking at that and thinking we're going to be able to score 3 or 4 without trying too hard. And with Haaland having been rested midweek.
Yeah, that's what scares me. He's coming in fresh. And when he's not fresh, he's putting in 2 or 3 a match.
But yeah, a very interesting Sunday. I mean, it's in some ways it's disappointing that so much of the sport is taking place on the same day. It's impossible to watch everything because there's just too much going on. Yeah. And there's a lot of overlap in terms of timing. So that is what I would say is like a little bit of the disappointment is it would have been nice if at least one of those matches had been today, but still a great day of sport.
Yeah, actually, I think the Real Madrid-Barcelona intrigues me more. That one has me stumped more.
Yeah, no, I can see where you're coming from. Obviously, La Liga is much more in the balance anyway. And then you just have these very contrasting teams. I think Barcelona, when everything goes right, are probably the better team. But they're a bit inconsistent and they have real low moments within the matches that they play. And Real Madrid are these kind of unconvincing, consistent winners.
Yeah. do you almost want to call them scrappy, but you can't call a team like
Yeah,
Real
no,
Madrid
it's
scrappy.
true how their
You know?
image is so much affected by, it's not their style of play, it's who they are that changes the way you see them. And because they're Spanish and they're Real Madrid and one of the biggest teams in the history of football and European football, it's, you don't want to just dismiss them almost as being kind of ugly to watch, but they sort of are at the moment.
So before we switch off to American football, and I'm sure we'll cover some television later, I have been following the Welcome to Wrexham show on FX/Hulu, which details Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney owning Wrexham and going through it. There are times where it's decent. And I think the times that are decent is when they actually just show the football, and they do a pretty good job of like building the intensity, because obviously I know what happens at the end of the day, but on a match to match basis, I wasn't following Wrexham last season. So, like you get some good ones, but they just showed the episode where they make it to the FA Trophy final, right? I'm saying that right. It's the trophy in the lower one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they make it to the FA Trophy final in Wembley. And of course, like, because it's them, their box is filled with celebrities and stuff like that. And David Beckham is there. And this I just thought would annoy the shit out of you. So Rob McElhenney has put like apparently a ton of time into like learning the game and like learning Welsh and understanding all about football and this and that. And he goes to one of like a writer who's English who also works with him that has been like helping them out with buying the club. He writes for like Always Sunny or whatever, but he's like I don't know, he's English. And he goes to me, he's like, who did David Beckham play for again?
Oh boy.
And it's just like, really? You want to say that like you're all into this now and you don't fucking know who Beckham played for? Like, get out of here. That was it. That, to me, that was like the lowest moment that he could have had on that show.
You would think even worse too, right? If you are trying to prepare and you're kind of trying to look the part whenever you can, he would have known Beckham was going to be there. So you think the night before or something, you brush up on Beckham. Now, you don't want to go into too much detail, right? Where you don't want to walk up to David Beckham and be like, I really enjoyed your loan spell at Preston in the 90s. Like, you don't want to be like too fake. But I do think just knowing that he spent most of his career at Manchester United, Real Madrid, PSG, AC Milan, like if you can, LA Galaxy, like you just know those bits. It's almost stunning to me. Maybe I have this wrong, but it almost feels like Beckham was such a huge celebrity that even with no interest in football, to not have a rough idea of the teams he plays for is kind of mind-blowing.
I mean, it's also mind-blowing because he didn't play for many. And especially like he played for one Premier League team minus the, like you said, the spell at Preston, but, and then anyway, they weren't in Premier League, but, and then obviously then goes and plays for Real Madrid and then PSG. Those are like one club at each league, and then that's it. And then the Galaxy and LA Galaxy. Like, it's not that difficult to remember that. And I think even me personally, I probably didn't really follow European football while he was on United, but now being a fan, like I feel like it's almost impossible to not kind of be a fan of it and not see tons of highlights of him playing, or like go back and watch old matches on YouTube and things like that, or like look at some of the stats when he was at United and how much he won and all of that. So it's just crazy to me that was just, I guess it was very embarrassing, but it won't be embarrassing because a lot of just Americans are watching this and they won't understand how embarrassing that is. That's like, oh, who did Wayne Gretzky play for again? Like it's almost what that's like.
If you, well, yes, if you'd bought a hockey team, but I mean, the reality is that David Beckham's way more famous than Wayne Gretzky. What I mean?
Yeah. No,
it'd be like,
I agree. I wouldn't deny that.
So, and in particular too, like Beckham has mostly stayed relevant since retiring, right? Like, if you are them, you must be talking about what he's done with Inter Miami. Like, there must be some interest in that because of just he's created a team in the US. How has he marketed it? How has he positioned it? Like, what what implications does that maybe even have for them if they want to try and have teams in different countries, perhaps if they want to kind of expand their football footprint. And then at the same time, he's a big ambassador for the upcoming World Cup. So you see a lot of him in terms of the preparation for the World Cup in Qatar. So yeah, it is embarrassing. Look, we might have people listening who don't really follow like European football, who think that it's not as embarrassing as we do. So maybe we're wrong to a certain degree, but I think you just have to factor in, like, if it had just been them turning up as celebrities at a match at Wembley, I wouldn't have thought that out. I would have been, but the fact that you own a team and you're trying to get immersed in the game, I think, yeah, you're right. It's just not a great look.
That's the really, like, especially I think him more than Ryan Reynolds, because he is really trying, like, he's the one who wanted to do this.
The
he
learning
just brought
Welsh
Ryan Reynolds on board.
Insane. I mean, that's just insane. That's just trying to find an easy way to appeal to people, but it's incredibly difficult, right? It's totally impractical. You're never going to come across people who only speak Welsh, so there's no real need for it.
Well, I guess if you own the team long term, maybe you do.
No, but I mean, and look, in North Wales, Welsh is much more commonplace than it is in the South. So yes, in that region, but still, like, there's no real benefit aside from a PR perspective, saying a few things in Welsh and buttering people up. It's not like he's ever going to be giving an interview in Welsh.
I agree. I agree with that. But then I can kind of see he's trying to show that he's invested in the community and in the team and things like that. I don't mind it too much. That doesn't bother me. But it's just the fact that he's putting in all this time and effort, but then you show, like, that's the outcome, that you can't even know that. That was pretty embarrassing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is also funny too. The only funny part of that show is he's the main driver of all of this, and he kind of just brought Ryan Reynolds on board because he has a ton of money. They didn't even know each other before.
Oh, really?
Like, hadn't even ever met.
Oh,
yeah,
that
didn't even.
I
know
thought
each
they
other.
were friends.
He reached out to Ryan Reynolds. No, they didn't even know each other.
Oh.
They met, like, during this process, and then they started talking. That's actually the cool part, is they started talking because of this all through Zoom, because it was like during COVID. And then the first time they met was like 2 years after they had bought the club in person.
Oh.
Like, they actually have on film the first time they've ever met. And it's really weird because you can tell that they have probably talked 50 times, like, over the course of the year. More. And then they kind of see each other and they're like, oh, hey, oh, that's you. Oh, okay, cool. Like, it's really strange.
That makes me dislike them more. I was working under the assumption that they were maybe not best friends, but like acquaintances at least. The idea that this was a kind of strategic partnership makes me dislike it more.
So he reached out to Ryan Reynolds basically and said, like, listen, I have this idea. I want to buy this club, blah, blah, blah. You have a ton of money that I don't. And you have companies that can then, like, help sponsor. Yeah. So it's like a good deal for you. And then, like, he got Ryan Reynolds on board. But what's funny about it is now whenever they go to the matches, people love Ryan Reynolds. And they're just like, oh, and it's that other guy who owns the club. He's in TV shows.
Because on a level of fame, right? Like, they're in different.
It's not even close.
And it's particularly outside the U.S. Because Always Sunny is not that popular of a show outside of the U.S. I mean, I don't even think Always Sunny is, like, even that popular in the U.S. I think if you're in a group of people who like Always Sunny, like, there are people who like it.
Or where you're at.
But, like, there's a lot of people who will have no idea about Always Sunny. So, whereas Ryan Reynolds, even if you don't watch the things he's in, you'll have just seen him and been aware of him from the last 20 plus years. Yeah, I mean, I know he's joked about the fact that there have been references to, like, Hollywood superstar kind of Ryan Reynolds plus other, like, he doesn't even get his name mentioned sometimes in terms of the Wrexham.
Yeah.
But it's understandable.
Yeah, it is kind of funny to watch, though, sometimes.
But all right. I mean, I guess we don't have to do a full game-by-game NFL preview. But we can, I mean, we've spoken about the big matchups in European football this weekend, and undoubtedly the big one in the NFL is Bills Chiefs.
Giants, Ravens.
It's Bills Chiefs. So going into this one, what are your thoughts going into the game?
Crazy that Mahomes and the Chiefs are underdogs at home. Kind of surprising. First time ever as a starter, he has not been favorite at home.
Yeah, I guess that both surprises me and doesn't surprise me, considering the Chiefs were obviously good before he got the job, right? So it makes sense. It doesn't surprise me that they're underdogs because, and Monday Night Football did little. I kind of went into, I expected them to obviously comfortably beat the Raiders on Monday Night Football. They ended scraping through that one. And I was almost disappointed because I like the Bills in this game. And part of me thought, well, if they absolutely dismantle the Raiders on Monday Night Football, then that might cause the kind of the line to shift a little bit over the course of the week. But I think the Bills deserve to be favorites. I think, realistically, they should have won every game so far. They just had that weird blip against the Dolphins. I I think they'll win this. I think they're the more complete team all around. But sort of as we spoke about on the last episode with the Chiefs, you just know if Mahomes is clicking and Travis Kelce is clicking, then they can beat anyone. But I think the Bills are better.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the Bills are the better team. They still have some injuries that kind of worries me a little bit, especially. I don't know how worried I am because their injuries are on defense. And it's one of those things, right? The Chiefs are going to score no matter what. So if you have injuries on defense and it goes from the Chiefs scoring 24 points to scoring 30, is it really that big of a difference? So I don't know. But even with those injuries, their defense has been pretty impressive. I mean, holding the Ravens to 20 is pretty good. I mean, maybe looking back on it, holding the Dolphins to 21, and a large portion of that, their defense played well, So even with those injuries, I think they're playing pretty good. I will have to go with the Bills here, as much as it pains me to go against the Chiefs. But like you said, if the Chiefs are clicking, this could be another shootout like we saw in the playoffs, and it could go down to who gets the ball last, which I think is what I would rather see. I mean, this is, from a betting perspective, this is a stay away game for me, and it's just
enjoy it.
Maybe throw on a prop bet.
Yeah.
Maybe just throw on like an over, even if we want to get a little risky, but the over I know is going to be pretty high. It's at 54, which is pretty high for a Buffalo team that averages 12 points per game letting up on defense. So that could be high. But I think this is a game you just sit back and enjoy and hope it's a good game, a fun game, and it goes like that last playoff game did.
Now, here's a real question. If you're the Bills, would you rather absolutely win this game by 15, 20 points? Or would you rather have a close game against the Chiefs where you come out on top?
I think you just take a win either way, because at the end of the day, you lost to them the last time you played, and you're playing in Arrowhead. And the Chiefs are always going to be there at the end. So if you can just win it at the end, even though they're going to be there, I think that's a big moral boost. And then you go into playoffs thinking, hey, even if we have to play them at Arrowhead, we've beaten them before. And then even if you're playing in Buffalo and it's a close game, you can, in the fourth quarter say, hey, we've been in a close game with them before and we still came out a winner. So, we can do this. So, because for me, I think it's just always that mentality of the Chiefs are going to be in there. And if they're always just beating you at the end, you can't get past that mentally.
No, I agree. And it's the thing I doubt about the Bills, which, their win against the Ravens recently was maybe an indication that they've overcome that issue. But the doubt with them is they're great when they're ahead by, they either destroy teams or they tend to lose close games. And when the playoffs come, it's unlikely that you're going to win the Super Bowl winning every game by 15 plus points. So you're going to have a test in there. And I'd want to pass some of those tests before you get to absolutely must win games. So yeah, if I were them, I'd rather I'd love it if you could kind of script it. If I were them, I'd love to have a situation where you're down 4 and you get the ball back with 90 seconds to go, and you just put together a drive and win it with a kind of walk-off touchdown. I feel like that would be,
Yeah.
People might pick holes in the performance afterwards, but from a confidence standpoint, that's probably the best outcome.
Yeah. Or even better, maybe you go up and then you stop them from getting like into field goal position or something like that to show that you can actually stop them at the end.
Yeah.
But I think you said last time we talked about this game, I think it's more important for the Chiefs, if they're to win, to not win on like the last drive, but to win convincingly. Because like you said last time, the Chiefs are always in it. And, they're always going to be there. They can always come back from 15 down, 17 down. They know they can win the close games. But even if they win a close game, are they really the better team? That's what you don't know. So I think for them, if they go out and win by 10, I think they sit back and say, you know what, we're probably maybe better than we were last year. And, now we've got a convincing win against the team that's supposed the Super Bowl.
But do they need that? Like, why would you need that if you're them? You've won a Super Bowl.
Got a lot of new players.
No, but you've won. Yeah, but fundamentally, as long as your head coach and your quarterback and maybe some of your key position players have been there, done that, I don't think if you're like Patrick Mahomes over the course of this season, I don't think is going to have many moments of self-doubt. He's going to think to himself, I've won a Super Bowl. I've lost in a Super Bowl. They're never going to go into a playoff game feeling as if they're definitely second best. So I get where you're coming from. And obviously I'm sure they would feel way better about themselves if they just absolutely destroyed the Bills in this game. But I don't think they need it much.
I'll tell you what Mahomes doesn't need. Any more commercials on Thursday night Amazon football. Because I don't know if you had the Amazon feed.
No, I don't get that.
But every commercial break was the commercial with him talking about his daughter and her future.
I've never.
I forget the tagline.
I've never seen that commercial. So
this is an indication maybe of how bad my CTE is, because that commercial played 27 times during that game, and I can't remember what the stupid tagline is. Maybe just because I was
trying to wonder.
Maybe I tried to burn it out of my brain. Maybe
for a second I was wondering.
It was so
for
stupid.
a second I was wondering what the relevance of your CTE was, as if Amazon knows you've got a bad memory, so they've put it on for you more often. Like, this is very customized content for Frank Duca. We're just going to play the same commercial every commercial break to make sure he understands it.
And he also wears those stupid sunglasses in the commercial.
That's your thing. The sunglasses.
No, those are awful. Those are the worst sunglasses I've ever seen on a human. And he's trying to make it his thing, and it makes me so sad because I really like him, and it's such a terrible thing to make your thing.
The sunglasses don't bother me quite as much as they bother you.
They're so bad. Who's buying those?
Well, Mahomes.
He ain't buying them.
All right, I guess the Giants coming into this game against the Ravens, I suppose if they win this game, then they kind of stamp some legitimacy on their credentials, I suppose. I mean, not from a Super Bowl contender standpoint, but certainly from could be frisky in the playoffs. Let's say that.
Wow, playoffs. Did you just use the word playoffs and the New York Giants?
I mean, from the position.
Playoffs? Eddie, we're talking about playoffs?
From the position that they're in now and the overall situation in the NFC, they have to be thinking about the playoffs. I mean...
Yeah, I think they are thinking about it. But as a Giants fan, I am not thinking about playoffs right now still.
I mean, when you factor in...
you still have 3 out of 4 games against the Cowboys and the Eagles.
Yeah. I'm not... Yes.
And you already lost 1 against them. So you're 0-1 already out of those 4 games.
Yeah, but then you look at their upcoming schedule. We seem to do this about one team every episode. Let's
Yep.
do it quickly then. So,
Okay.
Ravens,
Loss.
Jags,
Win.
Seahawks,
That's like a trap game. I'll give them the win, but it's a trap game.
Texans,
Win.
Lions.
Win. There's no way they're winning all
No,
these
but
games, though.
but my point would be we don't even have to go through their full season, right? If you just factor all of that in,
That's already what,
that yeah,
9?
they're already at
Eight.
8 wins. That's without them playing their 2 games against the Washington Commanders. You have to imagine at worst case scenario they're splitting that. So, they don't have to do too much to get to a 9-win season, really. And 9 wins in the NFC this year is probably enough for a wild card spot.
Yeah. I mean, maybe this is a good litmus test then. You're playing a team who record maybe isn't the greatest, but it's, everyone always thinks they are a playoff team, just the way they play football and the way Lamar Jackson can just control a game. So we'll see how they do against the Ravens. I mean, my concern is the Giants, to me, are not a team equipped to stop Lamar Jackson. They don't have a great front seven. I mean, they have Kayvon Thibodeau, who's looked okay as a rookie so far, but not phenomenal. They don't have great linebackers. He could run for 150 yards this game. It could get bad. It could get ugly. I think the litmus test for the Giants here in this game is their offense going to play well? Because the Ravens don't have a great defense. So if the Giants put up 17 against the Ravens, that's scary. The Giants should put up at least 24 against the Ravens. So that I think is the litmus test for the Giants is can their offense produce when they should be producing? So that will be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I expect them to lose this game. They might even lose this game handily, but I do think they'll make the playoffs from the position that they're now in. And with the situation for the other teams, you have to factor in the Rams look really bad. So a team that you would have expected to,
We still have to talk about the Rams.
a team that you would have expected to end the season with a pretty decent record. You would have probably looked at the situation. You would have expected 2 teams out of the NFC West, kind of as we spoke about on the last podcast, to be making the playoffs. And I don't know if that will be the case now. So you've kind of eliminated one NFC team sort of from the running in a weird way. And then, there's just, the NFC is definitely weaker than the AFC. And so, you could find the Giants kind of scraping in there as a wild card team, even if they aren't able to keep up this sort of type of winning record. I don't expect them to finish the season with 3 losses.
Like we predicted the Eagles.
Yes, exactly.
So I got a good trivia as we shift into some of the other games. What 2 teams have the worst yards per play on offense in the NFL this year?
I'll say Rams.
Rams have the worst yards per play on offense.
And second worst, I'll say the Washington Commanders.
The Cincinnati Bengals. Super Bowl, from the Super Bowl to the 2 worst offensive yards per play team in the NFL right now. Is that a Super Bowl hangover, or is that coming back to the norm?
I think it's a combination. They rode their luck in the back end of last season and definitely outperformed. Their kind of end result for the season was better than what they showed over the sort of entire course of the season itself. And then I think there is a slight hangover. Part of their hangover, I think they just have too much confidence and ego. Part of what
Are we talking about the Rams
the
or the
Bengals,
Bengals?
Okay. That whole bit was the Bengals, although much of it could have also been applied to the Rams. But I think particularly in the Bengals, there was too much of it was like there was too much swagger to everything they did, and a little bit, and that helped them probably on that playoff run. But I think maybe has made them forget exactly who they are as a team and where they stand exactly. So, yeah, I mean,
it's a good point, because I mean, I think of it as like swagger can can drive you in the short term, right? And the playoffs technically are kind of a short term run. And if you have that swagger and that confidence, it can kind of just propel you. But then when you have to get to work and go through a 5-6 month stretch, and be consistent, swagger isn't going to do it. You can't stay that high for that long. And, maybe that is part of the issue here is they can't go week in and week out and just be businesslike and get to work like a lot of teams or players like Tom Brady can.
Yeah, no, 100%. And they maybe just need to reassess kind of where they were. If they'd drawn up a roadmap 12 months ago about what their progression was going to look like, they were obviously way ahead of schedule based on the run that they had in the postseason. And maybe that made them feel as if they were way ahead of schedule in terms of their actual development. And I don't think they were. I think they just got a few semi-lucky wins and managed to nearly win the Super Bowl. And in any other year, they probably would have lost a couple of rounds earlier, and everyone would have said, hey, that was a nice, encouraging season from the Bengals. They could be a good team in the future. And instead, they got thrown into the category of Super Bowl contender year in, year out for the rest, as long as Joe Burrow is around. And that was probably a little too much too soon.
So give me your will not watch 1 minute game for this week, because there are a few contenders. One clear favorite, which for me would be the Colts Jags. But there are some others.
Yeah, I think realistically for me, it's Seattle, Arizona. Because at least Colts, Jags, because of the division they're in, like either of those teams could win their division because it's just such a mess. So I feel like I have to pay more attention to that game in a way. The three contenders really are Browns, Patriots.
Ugh, that just sounds boring. Just that.
But
just
there are some
sounds
storylines
awful.
to it, right? Like again, they're both
Bill Belichick. And
of
we're
course,
have to hear about
every
this.
time he plays Cleveland, you got to hear about the fact that he got fired from as a Browns.
Coached the Browns 37 fucking years ago.
And it's still bitter about it. As if he...
Yeah. Still, the only reason he's waking up in the morning every day still is the 1 year he gets to play the Browns.
Teach Cleveland a lesson. And also, right, if he wins this game, I think he goes tied for second for the most wins as a head coach in NFL history. So also not that interesting of a storyline because he's obviously going to get a win at some point in the rest of the season. So he's definitely moving into second. I think he's 23 wins behind top. So that I think is a more interesting debate. Like, will he stay as a head coach long enough to get 23 more wins? Like, I'm imagining.
Oh, he will die on the field.
Because I mean, how many seasons do you think it will take for the Patriots to win 23 more games?
This Patriots team? About 22 seasons.
I mean, I would say
5
to be safe. Yeah, it's 3 to 5, and the safe answer is
5 is the max. I'm giving 5 as the max. Like, I will be surprised if it takes more than 5.
Well, yeah, because I can't see them ever being worse than a 4 to 5 win team. So even if you're a 5-win team, you're getting there. So
how many years as a 5-win team does he get?
As long as he wants.
Does he get 5 years as a 5-year team?
You think they would fire him after year 4 when he's, say, 3 wins away from breaking the record?
Oh,
it would be the Belichick. It would be the Belichick thing. He would have to. He would respect them. That would be the way. That would be the way Robert Kraft could earn Bill Belichick's ultimate respect. It would even be better, like 1 win away. Just go.
It doesn't matter if I'm 1 win away.
Exactly.
I don't deserve another season. They're right. I should be.
It's like when he cuts guys like the day before the Super Bowl. Like even better. I think if he got his ultimate respect, it would be the Patriots heading into the Super Bowl. Bill Belichick tied most wins of all time, and he just says, "Sorry, Bill, I don't like the feeling coming out of the camp. Time to go."
Or they lose in the Super Bowl, and then he fires him because the loss was so bad in the Super Bowl.
But end
that
of the
he doesn't
season would be
deserve
the
it.
normal time to fire him, if you see what I mean. So that would be, it would come as less of a
Yeah.
surprise. But no, I think if he wants to hang around to break that record, I don't know if Bill Belichick cares about records. He feels like he both does and doesn't. But
If you ask him, he'll say he doesn't even know what the word record means. Like, that will be his answer. What defines a record? I don't care. Like, what?
But no, it's interesting. And
so I'll tell you one that I think I am very
Okay.
heavy on as like one of my most confident picks is the Packers against the Jets. You have a Jets team who is slightly cocky, winning 2 in a row and kind of blowing out the Dolphins. And you have a Packers team and a pissed off Aaron Rodgers who was embarrassed in London by a New York team playing another New York team. This just has, like Rodgers 350 yards, 5 TDs, win by 20 written all over it.
yeah, it does feel as if the line on this game is closer than I would have expected it to be. At the same time, obviously the Packers have been
In Green Bay.
pretty unconvincing so far. It does feel like a little bit of an overreaction. Like if this had been week 1 of the season, the Packers are like 10-point favorites. So have our
12.
perceptions of both of these teams changed that much over the course of the last few weeks. The one issue I guess you would say is they didn't have a bye week after their London game, so you are having to factor in travel, a bit of jet lag. It's not ideal preparation for a game, but it's the Jets, so
Yeah. And this is coming from someone who hates the Packers. Thinks they're the most overrated team of the last 10 years.
But yeah, no, I think, I would be extremely, the teams this weekend that would surprise me the most if they lost. Number 1 is the Bucks against the Steelers. Like if the Steelers win that game, even with a little bit of weird stuff going on in Tampa Bay, it would still just stun me. The next, I think the one next that would surprise me the most is the Packers. And then after that it actually gets tricky because I actually think it's one of those weekends.
Vikings. I mean, they're going to have either the Dolphins have a rookie at QB, or at best they have a slightly concussed Teddy Bridgewater.
I don't trust the Vikings though. You know what I mean? Like
You should, Eddie. How do you not trust Kirk Cousins? How many times does he revitalize your weekend of binge drinking by just pumping that blood?
And how many times
into
has he also ruined my week by losing to a team that you thought there was no way he would lose to them? So that would be, I mean, I would not be stunned if they lost. In the same way, look, I think the Rams should beat the Panthers, but because of what we've seen from the Rams so far this season, I wouldn't be stunned if somehow the Panthers scraped some kind of victory out of that. But I would be very surprised. But look, I'll be honest. You'll make you smile, I'm sure. I'll be really surprised if the Niners lose to the Falcons.
I would be surprised by that.
Like
too,
that's
actually.
another game where the line to me seems closer than it should be. Like this Falcons team, because obviously they've covered the spread in every game so far, and they've managed to keep themselves close in them. I think they're fooling people into thinking they're actually good or at least decent. But the reality is like there's a few backdoor covers in there and stuff, and they've been down by quite a lot and managed to get back into games. They're not really actually good. And against a Niners team where they're going to, if their defense is so good and they'll just run the ball all over you, that ability, like if the Niners are suddenly up by 17 points, they're not going to let the Falcons just slip back into the game.
Yeah, no, I think the Niners should win that pretty handily. You'll be happy to know, though, Eddie, that I have officially removed the Rams from any of my week picks.
Finally.
2 weeks in a row that they've been the only loss on my bet. I've officially been
Congratulations. That's the It's the
Thank you. I'm learning much quicker than the previous
Normally that would have
years.
been a week 15 decision, but you've got there.
Yeah. Last game we'll talk about is the Sunday night game, because I don't want to talk about the Monday night game because I'm tired of talking about Russell Wilson. Cowboys, Eagles. What's your prediction?
I mean, I think the Eagles are good. So I think the Eagles will win this game. I'm not willing to start buying Cooper Rush stock, and this would be, it's always, if it gets to the point, if the Cowboys win this, it gets to the point of, you start to have the conversation of, does Dak Prescott get his job back when he's healthy again? Like there's the moment when that conversation has to be had. Not to say that I think that Cooper Rush is the next Tom Brady, but there would be the moment where this starts to become like a Tom Brady, Drew Bledsoe situation of, okay, we know we've got the somewhat proven guy with a really big contract waiting to get back from injury, but this younger guy is doing a pretty good job, so we're going to keep riding the hot hand for now. And yeah, I'm not willing yet to, because I can't look at that win against the Rams and read too much into it, because the Rams are kind of garbage. This to me feels like the first real test of this Cowboys team in their current sort of form. And I think that even though the Eagles were a little unconvincing last weekend, I just think that they're the better team.
Yeah, I agree. I've watched the Cowboys a lot this season, and they've never really super impressed me. But then I've watched the Eagles, and there's just something about, they just methodically go down the field and they finish their drives. Whether it's Jalen Hurts just QB sneaking until he gets into the end zone, whatever it takes. I mean, they finish their drives, and I think that that definitely counts for something. So when you look against, not that I want to bring this game up because it's probably one of the worst games I've ever watched in NFL history, but when you watch when the Bears got down to the 3-yard line on the final drive, if that were the Eagles, I honestly think the call is QB sneak until you get in. If you don't get in the first time, line up again quick. QB
I don't know
sneak
if
you don't get,
it might be a little bit more.
And
I think it might be more sophisticated than QB sneak, but
I don't know. I mean, they do it like, if they get within the 3-yard line on their goal line, that's the first play they always try, is just a QB sneak with Hurts.
Yeah,
because it works
with no timeouts though. It's just calling it over and over again.
They had a ton of time.
It would have disappeared because QB sneak, you got to like unpile bodies and stuff. That's like a 25-second play basically to get reset. I do get what you're saying. I think they would have been a little bit more creative and probably at least had one play where you would have had him try and run with the ball. And right? I think the Bears should have done the same thing on Thursday Night Football. You should have had at least one play where you give him a chance to maybe run in, and it's the play it's the play we talk about all the time. You get your quarterback to roll out knowing he either has a couple receivers kind of running parallel to him, and if a linebacker or a DB steps up to try and close off the possibility of the run, you usually get just the easy, like 6-yard touchdown throw. Like that, to me, I would do that play every single time. As long as you have my only fear a little bit looking back at Fields is his decision-making is so poor, because the one thing you then have to tell him is, if you feel like you're going to get sacked, you just throw the ball out the back of the end zone. And if Fields probably would have just held on to it, because his decision-making just seems terrible.
Yeah. It's surprising to me that people are kind of surprised by the way he's playing, because as someone who watched Ohio State most weeks, this is exactly how he was in Ohio State. He's not super accurate. He has a great deep ball, and Ohio State lives off of just having fast receivers who are better than 99% of the teams they play, and they would just go over the top, whether it was like a post to the middle or just a straight vertical. They loved having those deep balls, and he throws a good deep ball. But if you ask him to pinpoint a throw, it was never his strong point. And it's just shocking to me that sometimes people are like, how did he not make that throw? Well, he never really made that throw. Like that was his thing. So I think he's showing what he is, and I don't think he's going to get much better than this.
Yeah, I also think the rapid success of some quarterbacks in recent years has fooled us into thinking that there isn't a teething process. Like, I don't think Justin Fields is going to be great anyway, but I think because of how good Mahomes and even Allen and a handful of other quarterbacks have been within 1 or 2 seasons of being Joe Burrow, even within 1 or 2 seasons of being in the NFL, I think we've kind of been tricked into thinking that every good prospect within 24 months should be in not necessarily their final version, but almost, should be capable of winning a Super Bowl, basically. And the reality is history would have shown us the opposite. And it takes 4 or 5 seasons for most quarterbacks to get used to the speed, learn the new complexities of the playbook, kind of really get up and running. That counts even for the likes of Peyton Manning. That was the case, right? So, and Andrew Luck, who was one of the, in our lifetime, probably the most highly thought of quarterback prospect, I would say. And, it's still, his first couple of seasons weren't that pretty. So I don't think Justin Fields is going to be great, but I also think people are too quick nowadays. And I know this is coming off the back of me insulting Trevor Lawrence on multiple occasions over the course of this season. But I think people are too quick to decide that this quarterback has started 9 games now and he's not that good. So he's never going to be good.
Yeah. I mean, the only argument against that is Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he's come right in and looked like complete shit.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay. Last American football question. Trevor Lawrence, good game or bad game this week? That's it. That's all I want to know.
Bad game.
Okay.
So he's going to set some records this weekend. He's going to throw for 900 yards.
Yep. Yeah. That's my prediction now.
All right. Well, I guess we can wrap the sports up then and move on to TV talk, which we only have one show to focus on, and that is the season finale from Lord of the Rings. The Rings of Power.
Rings of Power.
I guess we obviously on the last episode kind of made some predictions to a certain point about what we thought would happen in this final episode. I will say we discussed how that in that episode, in episode 7, not much had happened, and they had multiple storylines that they needed to wrap up possibly in this season. In the end, they wrapped all of them up. It disappointed me that they did so little in episode 7, and that they could have done a bit of that wrapping up in episode 7 and not like episode 8 just felt like a whirlwind that I almost didn't appreciate the things that were happening because so much was happening. And in particular, now I'm assuming this does confirm that the mystery wizard is Gandalf. Like, it's not confirmed, but several major. It is.
It is confirmed, but no, you're right. It's not officially confirmed, but the major confirmation at the end, the quote he has, follow your nose.
So
a word for word quote he says in the Lord
assume that. I felt like they could have done that in episode 7. That the Gandalf storyline could have been progressed a lot further in episode 7, leaving the Ring Sauron story for episode 8.
Yeah. I think at the very least, I never like the idea of revealing a false trick in the plot at the beginning of an episode and already wrapping it up by the end of the episode. Yes. It should have at least been maybe the end of the episode before is Sauron, our Lord. And everyone's like, what? No, that can't be. And then you can debate it and think about it and then go into the next episode and slowly change it.
Not 4.5 minutes later being like, oh no, that was they were wrong.
I mean, in fairness, I've predicted since the second episode that Halbrand was Sauron. Like, I was full on board. And once they said Sauron our master, I was even more on board that Sauron was actually Halbrand. at that point, because I was like, no, that's too. They would never make it that easy. They would never just have someone come out and say you are X character. Like there's more to that.
Yeah, which makes you wonder, because obviously the internet as a whole, right, was pretty accurate in terms of the predictions of what was going to happen fairly early on, and it makes you wonder if they thought, like, when you're making that TV show, do you feel like everyone will have this figured out? And
Yeah, you can only hide it so much without making it bad from like a plot and a like a story sense. And I think they did a good job. Like if you're not a huge Lord of the Rings follower and you're just watching this show casually, I think you would think that maybe the stranger could be a bad guy and that maybe Halbrand could be a good guy. I think they did a decent job.
Yeah.
They hit it as well as they could by still making it kind of fun and interesting.
My other criticism would be the personality progression from this, like, the Sauron perspective was a little too rapid. He went from really being nice guy, like whatever act he was putting on, to as soon as then it was just in the space, like as soon as he kind of emerges in the elven world, all of a sudden I'll just kind of behave like a weirdo here. Like that was straight away. That also to me happened a little bit too rapidly, which could have benefited from him making it there in episode 7 and kind of having a much more gradual reveal. But it was, as soon as he was there, it was like, oh, here we go. This is, things aren't right.
No, I 100% agree. So I think from what I've heard, originally this was supposed to be a 10 episode season, but then they condensed it into 8. If this is what they ended up condensing, these last 2 episodes, it's a real shame. If you tell me they condensed episodes, the original 1 through 6 into 1 through 4, I'm okay with that. But if this is where they cut the time, it's a shame, because I would have had more enjoyment watching him slowly kind of turn while with the elves, and while like kind of figuring out how to make the rings and how he's going to make his ring and putting it together. But it, like, within a span of 15 minutes, it went from all the elves are going to die because we don't have enough mithril to, hey, let's just make all these rings and forge all these rings, to, oh, now I know what I'm going to do. See you guys later. I'm going to Mordor. Like, which is very quickly.
Which is the other thing too, right? If you're coming, like, obviously most people who are watching this will have some familiarity with The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and stuff. But if you were just coming in, if you're a kid or something and this is your first exposure to this story, the fact that he then appears, you don't know that he has to go and cast his own ring, or he's planning on casting his own ring at Mount Doom. Like, you don't know this bit. And so him kind of, the final scene of him staring off over them towards the mountain, it is less significant. You don't know what his plan is. Maybe that's what they want. But if you work under the assumption that, I don't know, whatever, 70% of people pretty much know where the story kind of has to go. Like, even if you've just seen Lord of the Rings, you have some idea of what has to happen with these rings. Then you're not really adding anything with that element. But if you don't know what's going on, it just seems totally meaningless.
Yeah. It was a good episode. And I guess at the end, when you look at the season as a whole, it's a decent first season, I guess, in terms of setting things up. But I think they spoiled a little too much, and that finale was way too fast. I would rather that have been a 2-episode finale, or at least make it 15 more minutes at the very least.
I kind of don't get the ring thing. Like, I don't get. And again, I know there'll be people who've read the books and stuff who will be
not part of the books.
But I don't understand
this whole mithril thing.
Yeah, I don't understand how this saves them. I don't understand the real significance of the tree, and like why
I'm pretty sure that's their own invention. That's not part of the book.
So I don't get this, like, our tree is dying and that's bad for us. We just have to go somewhere else. I don't really understand.
Oh, that's part of like the elven lore, like.
But they can just go somewhere else with another tree, right? Like, it's not the biggest deal in the world, is it?
Well, they can't come back to Middle Earth.
Yeah, but
They like leave Middle Earth.
okay. Couldn't they go and live with it? The dwarves have a tree, don't they? You know what I mean? Like,
But their tree's dying too.
but you know what I mean?
Eventually.
But like, they've never really, they kind of didn't explain the tree bit enough. It was just sort of like the tree is dying. Uh-oh, catastrophe. They didn't really explain how the mithril solves that problem. And then they definitely didn't explain how the rings solve the problem of the tree. And it's just like, these are really powerful rings. Okay.
Yeah.
And when we have these powerful rings, everything will be better.
But the other part that, like, just to, like, what puts the stamp on that it was too quick was when, like, within the first 15 minutes of the episode, they're like, hey, listen, we didn't get enough mithril, but we've got a solution. We're going to make these rings. Guy's like, nope, too late. Sorry, we got to go. Like, what? Like, that's just the epitome of how quick that episode was. We're like, no, we've got the solution. Sorry, you're too late. Really? We're 10 minutes into this episode. How are we too late?
No, yeah, it's true. And so do those three owls, are they the ones that wear the rings? So it's those three just because they're there. They just get the rings.
I think so, yeah.
Just happy to be there. Like, oh, wow, I really got fortunate here. I got this ultimate ring of power because I was in the room when it was cast.
So I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings person, but from what I think is they go to separate areas. So like in Lord of the Rings, Elrond is in, fuck, I'm going to get roasted for not knowing what the hell it's called, but he's there. And then Galadriel is in the forest. Remember, they go visit her in the forest. So I think like wherever they are, the elves can like survive.
Okay. All right.
And I don't know where Kelly Brimbaugh is.
So the rings are replacing the tree, basically.
Or they're like, yeah, I guess.
Like the ring, they are then a walking tree, fundamentally.
Kind of.
Like they're providing this energy life source that the other elves need.
Yeah, I think that's more the thing, is like they're providing a life source to keep the elves eternal.
Okay. All right.
I think that's from what little I know.
And again, a lot of people listening to this will be frustrated by the fact that we don't know this. And my point would be...
But maybe that's an indication of the show.
Exactly. Because I'm not coming into it as a complete, like I've read The Hobbit. I've watched The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And still I don't completely understand. Now, none of that recently either. So maybe my knowledge of this would be a bit clearer if that had been in the last 15 years. But the fact that within the show itself, they didn't just take 15 seconds to properly explain what these rings would do. Like, oh yeah, the way this tree works is that in order for us to stay in Middle Earth, it emits this life source, and the elves need to be within X distance of this to be able to, live forever.
See, I don't even know if it's the tree that's giving off the life source, but the tree is like an indication of the life source's life is not a good word, but like the life source's power. And like as the tree dies, that means maybe that like the aura is dying, kind of thing. Because there's like a darkness that's taking over, and the tree is kind of like almost like an elf, that it survives off of this life force. And as the tree's dying, that like the life force is dying. That, I think that is what I think it is, but maybe I'm wrong as well. But yeah, I agree. I think it's a shame that they rushed that episode, because that was actually a really good, over 2 episodes. That's a really good 2-episode finale. That would have been really good, I think. For as much as they dragged out other parts of the season, to rush that was kind of a shame.
Yes. On the heels of episode 7 being the weakest episode, in our opinions at least, and the episode that contained the least action and plotline development, to then follow that up with being like, and now let's wrap everything up really, really quickly. It seemed unnecessary. They could have they could have taken half of episode 7 and used that for a lot of the plot lines that we then saw in episode 8. And the show itself probably would have benefited from that.
Now, tell me if this interests you or doesn't. So the showrunners have said season 1 was going to focus on Galadriel and who is she, what's her journey, where has she tripped up. Season 2,
Please
they
God,
said,
please God, don't say anything Hobbit related. Please God.
is all no is Sauron focused, and like why Sauron is like evil, but not fully evil, and kind of like in this in between of, like he wants to, like, it's what he said to Galadriel, right? Like he wants to rule the world, but doesn't have to necessarily be an evil rule, but that whole bit that he goes through. So it's going to be, supposedly it's going to be a Sauron focused season where you get insights into him.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably makes sense, because again, that doesn't seem to be, and I'm sure it is explained in more detail if you've read like everything associated with the story. But yeah, if you're just someone who's watching the movies, watching the TV show, he's just a evil person who exists. There's no real explanation of it, So aside from the fact, obviously, they hint at the fact in the Lord of the Rings trilogy that he wasn't always evil, because he kind of had that dynamic with Gandalf, right, where there is some sort of suggestion at that one moment in time he was a sort of more positive force. But
well, they think like, yeah, and supposedly it was kind of like it could have been this time, and you can kind of see it, like he wasn't super evil, like as Halbrand, like disguised as Halbrand, like he could have killed Galadriel right there, and he didn't.
Yeah, that bit also didn't make sense to me, and that could have done with being a section where, like, him revealing himself, then just confusing her by entering into her mind for a while, and then, I don't know, dumping her in the rivers.
Trying to convince her to join.
Yeah,
with
and then dumping her in the river and running off. Like, he didn't, it's kind of weird. Like, he just needed the rings to exist. He didn't want one of them or something. You know what I mean? Like, there's this weird part where it feels like if he'd been a little bit more strategic, he could have just not revealed himself quite so soon and had some benefit from all of that. I don't know. It was just kind of strange. Like, okay, I got them to make the rings. Now I can run away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Disappointing. We'll have to try and find another television show to replace it for the TV talk, because...
Well, we've got 2 more Game of Thrones.
Oof. I'm almost at the point where I'd rather have leprosy than watch any more Game of Thrones. All right.
Well, with that, do you have any more topics?
No, that's it for me.
All right. Time to go watch some Penn State football.
Good luck.
All right. Talk to you later.
See ya.
Cheerio.